When was this?
This was 2018. Yeah. 2018 December. Yeah, December. But I only full-fledged started in like Jan, Feb, March of 2019.
Which is right
ye-
before the lockdown. Is it?
What?
Jan, Feb, March is right before the lockdown.
That's 2020, babe.
Hello, hello. I'm Prey, short for Prerna, also known as the girl inside Traveler's Shoes, and this is Yours Curiously, where I bring in some of my favorite people, get personal, and go deep on diverse interests, beliefs, and well, things you and I have probably wondered about at some point, and find out exactly what makes these people tick. And while we're doing that, entertain just a teeny bit of our curiosity at a time. This is the first half of a two-part conversation with Pushpanjali. Pushpanjali Nair is a small business owner of two budding businesses, Avanli Blitz, which she refers to as a Maison de Délices. It's filled with delectable delicacies from French, Italian, Mexican cuisines, as well as some quick bites, pastries, and desserts. And then you have the House of Trip, which brings gourmet sauces and jams to enrich your everyday cooking. In this episode, we talk about her beginnings and her shift from psychology to cooking, pressure of being in a high end restaurant's kitchen, therapeutic effects of cooking, and of course, a lot of food talk that'll make your mouth water as you listen along. But first, I'd like to have a word with you about Don't Talk That Trash. Like what you hear? You'll love what I write. Don't Talk That Trash is my personal letter straight to your inbox. At the end of every month, I sit down on my desk, open my laptop, and write. There's just one catch: no editing. It contains raw thoughts on whatever occupies my mind at the moment, and quite a nice way to wrap up a month. Curious? You can get your own by visiting InsideTravelersShoes.com/subscribe. Don't Talk That Trash subscribers are also the first ones to know when I whip up something fun and receive cool bonuses from time to time. Psst. It's free and email only. So, what are you waiting for? Check out InsideTravelersShoes.com/subscribe. Again, InsideTravelersShoes.com/subscribe and read the very next one. Now, back to the episode. It's a cold winter night tonight, and it's past 10:30, and I'm sitting in a beautiful terrace with some ambient warm light with Pushpanjali Nair next to my side. Hi, Pushpanjali.
Hi, Prerna. What's up?
I am so stoked that we are doing this. So the first time when I met Pushpanjali, it was at a birthday party of my friend.
What a night.
Yes, Abhi's birthday. And what happened? So she brought a cake and she made it. And I was kind of looking forward to tasting it because I always want to know what people.
That was a chocolate mousse cake with like shortbread crust and stuff.
Yes.
And I was super excited. I was waiting to see how all of y'all were gonna react to it. But I was so nervous at the same time because it's like a new set of people. But yeah.
The minute she brought in, I was like, when are they gonna cut it? Because I just wanted to taste it. And then when finally, when it happened, actually put it in my mouth and took a slice of it and bit into it. It was like, oh my gosh, that is super tasty.
You mean that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Then I'm gonna take that. Thank you. But that's obviously the first of many more to come. I hope you know that. Like, obviously.
Yeah, I
lots
would
more
love to taste more of your cooking. I mean,
Lots more.
yes. So when I first met Pushpanjali, she was so outspoken, just speaking her heart out, and she was like, this is not one of my great days." And I was like, "Is it?" Because you have such infectious energy. To be honest, that's what I felt.
Really?
Yes.
I mean, but you have caught me on off days, to be honest. I don't think I allow it to engulf the rest of the day. So if something's bad, I just kind of drop it where it is and try to move past it as much as I can, obviously, because it's not as easy to do. But yeah,
Exactly, because there are things that go wrong and things that go right, and we have to kind of separate them, right?
exactly.
And not let something that went bad, we shouldn't put it on other people.
Exactly.
That are completely
Projection, right? It's not fair to anybody. So I think it's best when something bad happens, you've had a bad day, let it sink in, don't suppress it, feel what you gotta feel. And if you're meeting somebody who has nothing to do with whatever reason
or
you're
a
upset,
situation
or a situation, yeah,
or an event that has no correlation.
with the person you're seeing or with the rest of your day,
Yeah.
it's obviously easier said than done, but I think I personally like to just let it go. And that just be like, you know what? I'm here right now. I'm with Prerna. I'm talking to Prerna. And I just
Exactly.
want to have a good conversation.
Not
like,
contaminate that energy that we
exactly.
have right now,
Exactly.
by bringing up something from the
that could be distressing,
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a very live in the moment kind of thing, which again I was talking to you about, right?
yeah.
This is one of the situations where you got to live in the moment. This is definitely one of those situations.
So tell me, what did you want to be when you grew up as a child? I know it, as children, we have so many
my God,
things that are
so
out
many
there.
things. Yeah.
But maybe when you were an adolescent.
Okay. So I wanted, growing up, when I was basically just a kid, I wanted to be so many different things. I wanted to be a doctor. I love animals, so basically want to be a veterinary doctor. I wanted to be a lawyer, and that kind of stuck. So I was very fascinated. Wanted to do law super, super badly. After 10th grade, I decided to take psychology. So I took psychology, I studied psychology, and by the end of 12th, I thought, okay, I'll do a degree in psychology and then I'll do law after the degree. But
Why interest in law?
interest in law because for me it was criminal law. So I want to do criminology, actually, to be more specific, and then do criminal law because for me, I think it's more fascination with the human mind and finding out why people do the things they do. If somebody has committed some sort of crime, what is the root cause or what made them do it? What are their triggers? What could their childhood been? Could their childhood have been like? Because I personally feel like there's a lot that contributes to actions, and I was very fascinated by all of it. So that's why, and I loved it. Honestly, it was great. But yeah, I think
So-
that's what I wanted to do.
Criminal law was basically you were trying to understand where these
People came from.
people, these emotions in people and their actions stemmed from, like what gave rise to this.
Exactly, which is mainly why I wanted to do psychology to get more insight into like the human psyche, and I loved it. I loved every bit of it, but I felt like it was a little too much for me. It was a little too real for me. It scared me. The deeper I got into it, the more it scared me.
What part?
So I did an internship in my second year at this rehabilitation center, and I worked.
Where was this rehabilitation
It's
center?
close to where I stay. So I stay in Hennur. It's about 2 kilometers from my house. So I used to go there every day, and it was my work, and I had a supervisor and everything, and I learned a lot. And I was assigned to a schizophrenic, and it was a roller coaster because I got very attached to him. He was this 62-year-old schizophrenic that had his days, and I got super attached. But at the same time, I realized that it's very hard for me, being the way I am, to keep things separate. If I hear a problem, if somebody tells me that something is, upsetting them or, causing distress in their lives, I definitely want to help in whatever way I can. But I feel like when people tell me their pain, I sort of, as corny as it sounds and as cheesy as it sounds, it's true. I feel it. Like when you talk about your pain, I can feel it. And I sort of get too involved in it. And it has definitely taken a big toll on my mental health, especially at that age. I was a lot younger. And
How old were you?
I was 19, 20, 20. And I was still figuring my own life out. So I think that was the wrong phase for me to have chosen to do that. But I studied, I learned as much as I could, and not just for the purpose of a degree. I wanted to study, not formal education, not necessarily. I just wanted to research and learn more. And I had a mentor who was also my lecturer when I was in 11th and 12th. And her and I were really close, and she was sort of my mentor. And like we went on to continue to be really close. And she educated me on
Are
a lot
you
of
guys
things.
still in touch?
Yeah, we're still in touch. I don't think we've met in a year and a half. In about, yeah, a year and a half. But
I think in
will.
a year, no one has met.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in 1 year, since March, right?
Since March.
Since March, I haven't met so many people that I actually really want to, because I feel like they contribute such enriching conversation to my life and to my day. And I miss a lot of, people, but not now. Maybe in a bit. Maybe in a bit, not right now. We'll see. But I definitely, meeting her is on my to-do list in the next couple of months. Because I need to update her also on like what's up with my life and what I'm doing. And yeah. So psychology was always the dream. Law was always the dream. But I figured out in, I think, the fourth semester of my college that that's not what I wanted to do. Although I have like immense love and passion towards the subject, I wasn't sure if it was right for me, considering, I have pretty strong, I have had pretty strong unresolved, childhood trauma and like issues with my own mental health that I needed to address first. So that's when I decided to take a break and I came back home. For college, I was staying outside. So I came back home and it was a really nice break, to be honest. I never thought being home would be that fulfilling and that enriching. And it was just nice. And I feel like I made the right decision with that. So I came back home and my life changed. It just changed. It got better for a bit. And then,
What changed exactly from your transition from your college, quit dropping out and coming back home?
I feel like a part of me knew that that was not what I wanted to do. Subconsciously, I knew, but I was forcing myself. Like I was like, no, you took this course up, you will finish, and I put that sort of pressure on myself when I was already not in the greatest place mentally. So that kind of overpowered my passion for the subject, and it made me sort of resent even going to college or waking up in the morning and getting on with my day. And being back home, it felt like just comfort. Like even though for me back in the day when I was like 18, 19, getting out of my house and staying out of my house was like the dream. And I stayed out for 2 years and I came back home and I was like, you know what? Whatever it may be, whatever the environment is, this is home. I feel safe here. I feel comfortable here. And I think that helped me. That was what helped me. get back on track in a lot of ways.
For me, coming back home has always kind of, merged with this feeling that you finally don't have to take care of every single thing in your life, and you can have people depend,
Exactly.
who
You've got
will help
someone.
you.
Yeah, exactly. I
Cooking,
mean,
the basic things like that, you don't have to cook every day.
every single meal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I stayed in the hostel. In the hostel, dude, it was horrible food. It was pathetic. Like, it was really, really bad, bland food. And it was the same thing over and over again. And for someone like me, with a palate that's so inquisitive, and my palate is just, it's too high maintenance, okay?
Why don't you talk about it?
Yeah, so I've always had like this really, really, really sensitive palate, I would say, because I was a taste tester for everyone in my family. My grandmom was a great home cook. She used to make the best food, and my mom also like makes some really, really nice dishes.
What are your favorite things that your grandma made?
Oh, there was this sweet. I can't even explain it. It was made with rotis and doodh peda. So it was a sweet that was, I think it was her own creation. I'm not even sure if it has a name, but that's my most distinct memory of her.
So roti, and was it like a filling inside?
Yeah, not filling inside. So it was a roti. She'd roll the peda mix in it. She'd dip it in, I think, maple or honey. I think honey is more likely. She dip it in honey and milk, and she just crumb coat it with a few pistachios and like chopped up. Oh, it was so good. It was really
Sounds
good.
delicious. I want to have it.
I can recreate it for you. We can do that. We can definitely do that. My mom makes some really good biryani. Her biryani is pretty good. Been cooking too much because I've been taking over the responsibility of cooking at home. So my favorite food though, what my mom makes is rasam. I love rasam.
Rasam.
Rasam
It's
rice is
home.
my dude, exactly. It's my comfort food. You know how everyone asks, like, hey, what's your comfort food? Is it like French fries? Is it a burger? Is it pizza? I'm like, no, it's rasam rice. I want some nice, like, spicy sweet, sour. It's just, I love it. Rasam is my favorite thing in the world. You give me a glass of rasam, I swear to God, I'll just drink it and be content.
I do that a lot as well. Like everyone, it's kind of our Indian food that we've always had while growing up, and that's made at home. That is your comfort food, right?
Exactly.
For me, it's pappu rasam.
Oh my God. So my best friend's mom makes some amazing pappu rasam. And till date, every time we go to her house, like my friend and I, other friend and I, every time we go to her house, Purasam and I, both of us, like so I have two, like really good best friends actually, Amulya and Sanjana. So every time we go to Amulya's house, Sanjana and I eat so much. It feels like we're going to like Nagarjuna and eating like one nice plate of Andhra meals with like pappu rasam and podi and ghee and everything.
Gongura
It's
pachadi.
just, oh my God, it's so good, dude. Amazing. Yum. I love this kind of food. I also like continental food a lot, but I don't think anything gives me comfort the way rasam does. I don't think anything gives me comfort the way rasam does.
I think one more favorite of mine, I think breakfast is pongal.
Oh, my mom makes some really good pongal.
I
She makes some really good pongal.
Maybe someday, I
Yes,
get to try it.
definitely. My favorite breakfast food though would be dosa. Like a nice crispy masala dosa. With that coconut chutney and that sweet, sweet spicy sambar.
I think, it's
I can feel it. I can feel it. It's home.
it kind of, satiate all our South Indian buds.
Exactly. I think South Indian food is really underrated. I think it's super underrated. And yeah, it's got to be one of my favorite cuisines.
I actually, when I went to Andhra Pradesh early this year and we stayed in villages, I absolutely
Loved
loved
it.
the food that was made, and it reminds reminded me of my grandma's cooking, which I wrote about in my blog as well.
So it's like authentic, you know? That's the best part, I think, about what you do. You travel, so you get to taste food authentically. Like, it is from the places. The dishes you eat are from the origin. You're eating all these dishes where they are made. Literally, you know, it's not like you're going to the north and asking for idli sambar, or you're not coming here and asking for aloo paratha. You know, it's like you're eating it the way it is meant to be made. And I think that authenticity just means everything in the world of food. Authentic food is especially authentic Indian food. A lot of people, especially our country, I feel, is so obsessed with the Western way of living, their lifestyle, and the food that they completely forget what you have right here. Like, before, so I mean, you see where I live, right? Just for everyone who's listening, like I kind of live in the middle of nowhere. So we had like a shed next door where our helpers would stay, and they would make us these jowar rotis every night with this really spicy. They call it a saru, so it's like a sambar but not as thick as one. So it's a little more light, and it is so good, and it's so refreshing and healthy, and it's authentic, right? It's from North Karnataka. So getting to taste different food from just around here itself has been such an enriching experience. If you ask me to talk about food, I'll go on and on. So feel free to pitch in anytime.
Sure. Because for me, travel and food, I think, both are such experiences that, blend in so well together. When you travel, food is one big part of culture.
Exactly.
Everywhere. And it changes from, region to region. And when you have all these beautiful, delectable flavors in your mouth, and it changes every time, and you kind of also cherish it. Like, you go there and you ask them what is your specialty, and you have that
Exactly.
and tasted so many things at this point, and it's
Honestly, like
the variety as well.
variety, and plus, trying food that's out of your comfort zone, you might just be pleasantly surprised. Like, it may not sound as appealing, but it may taste just fantastic. Like,
Yeah, some of them look ugly,
ugly, but would
but
be, yeah.
super. That's, I think, very true with Indian cuisine.
Yeah, I agree. Plus, I think presentation, when you go to like, places and you're traveling and you're actually trying the local cuisine, for me, so one thing that comes into mind was I was in Sri Lanka and I had gone with my godparents, and so we had one like a driver driving us around the whole time, like because we were tourists, right? And on the last day, he organized a lunch at his house for us, which was extremely sweet of him, and it's one of the experiences I hold really dear. We went to his house, and I was young. I was probably about like 8 years old. I played with their kids and everything, and his wife had made this kheer, okay, of like different lentils and stuff. I can still taste it. I'm not even kidding, Prerna. I have never tasted anything like it. I've tried to remake it. I've tried to explain to my mum how to like do it. We have tried, and it just hasn't happened. I don't know her name. I don't know the driver's name. And it was too long ago for me to even go back and be like, hey, so you remember what you made me? Because, but it was the best thing I've ever tasted. And it's an authentic dish for them. It's a staple food for them because it provides them with all the nutrition that they are looking for, fiber and, all of it. So I basically tasted something that was their day-to-day food, and it blew my mind. I still can't get over it. I can taste it. When I think of it, I can taste it. So I think that's one of the most enriching things when it comes to food. Feels all these different flavors and bursts of like spice, maybe sweet, whatever you're eating, right? It's just a burst of flavors in your mouth. And I think it's beautiful how those flavors can make you feel emotions. And that's what it is to me, like food.
Even the smell of food,
It's
like I went there and I smelled the rasam and pappu, and I was like, oh,
right,
grandma's cooking.
right. It's the fragrances, the spices, the everything that you use. And I'm not just talking about like Indian cuisine, right? Food all around the world, everywhere, every single country, every single town, every single village for that matter of fact, has something to contribute to the culinary world. If only you go looking. If only you actually go out there and look for it. And I shared this with you earlier. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. I want to travel and experience, and I want to establish food and what it means to me. Because right now, my entire life revolves around it. And it makes me happier than anything ever has. To be very honest, it is therapeutic. Even the most stressful moments, I love it. I work really nicely and really calmly under pressure. Absolutely love what I do.
That's so beautiful to hear. I was wondering before we get into more food, which we will,
Which we will.
because food is such a beautiful topic to discuss. How did you, get acquainted with cooking, and how did it start your transition from, psychology and wanting to be a psychologist, and transition into cooking at this point?
So I think, as I said, I dropped out, right, in second year. Sorry, yeah, second year, end of second year, I dropped out. I came back home and my granddad was living with us, and I've always loved cooking since I was a kid. I used to sit and watch my grandmom make food, and I used to watch and observe techniques and methods. And even though she was a home cook, just everything from the way she used to cut vegetables to the way she used to stir and like all the techniques, it was just very fascinating to me. So growing up, I just used to cook a lot. I used to love cooking, and my granddad used to love my cooking.
When did you start cooking?
So the first memory I have of actually cooking, I think I was 6 years old, and my mom taught me how to make like a normal dal, just a plain dal. I wasn't allowed near like any gas range because I was a kid. But I remember putting a stool, standing next to her, and like stirring and putting ingredients in. So I was 6, yeah, 5 or 6 when I first started. So I used to watch my grandmom cooking a lot, and then I watched my mom cooking a lot, and I just loved, like, it. Something about it fascinated me, amused me, and I was just. And plus, as I said, right, my palate has always been very dominant. It's my strongest sense. You know what? That's so true. No, I think my palate is like my strongest sense. Like I will believe whatever I taste. Like it's like that. I might not believe what I hear. I might not believe what I see, and I still may not believe what I smell, but I will believe what I taste. Like I don't know. I will believe it.
Why don't you explain me more about what this belief means?
I trust my palate, mainly because to me, I've always been somebody that flavors. So, for example, say like you give me something to taste, right? And I take a bite of it, and there's something that's that's dominating it a little too much. Like, let's say salt or spice. That's the first thing that'll hit my palate. It's the first thing that'll hit my palate. And no matter how, no matter how good the rest of the dish is, I will tell you that this is too much. We've got to alter it. So that's happened since I was a kid. And I was a taste tester to my grandmom and my aunt and my mom and all of them. So, when I really actually started cooking was just about, I think, 2.5 years ago, 2.5 to 3 years ago, and I moved back home, as I said, and my granddad was living with us, and he loved my cooking. He absolutely loved it. So I remember making him Chinese food once. He really likes, like, this was Indo Chinese though, it was an authentic Pan Asian. Um, he really likes noodles and fried rice and stuff like that. So I remember making him chili paneer, chili chicken, and fried rice. And he was very towards, I mean, the older he grew, the lesser he ate non-veg stuff, but he wanted to eat this, so he ate it. And I remember the exact face he made when he took the bite, and I think that was the moment where I was like, okay, this is something I'm good at. And he had always told me that he used to call me Chokri, because
Chokri?
yeah, he's from Bombay. Like, he's from Bangalore, but he lived in Bombay for a while. So he used to call me Chokri. So he's like, Chokri, you should completely get into food and, go to culinary school.
So, chokri is a North Indian term for a girl, basically.
Yeah. To my granddad, it was like a term of endearment, like chokri. So it's really cute. It was super cute. So I was very happy. I remember that being a very good day for us, and I was really happy. And he used to constantly tell me that, you should join culinary school. And I always brushed it off like, okay, I love cooking and stuff, but not sure. And then I got into a really toxic, terrible relationship. Well, it was my first actual relationship, so I'm not too hard on myself about it. But I was in a really terrible relationship, which was really unhealthy mentally for me and probably for my partner as well, my then partner as well. But I sort of started baking and cooking again as an escape. I was running away from my reality and I started cooking again. And to be honest, it saved my life in more ways than one. I wouldn't be the person I am today if I didn't make that decision for myself. And that's why, even though Avnali Blitz is not the end goal, it's the first, and it will always mean a lot to me.
So, tell me more about Avinli Blitz. How did you come up with the name?
So I've mentioned my best friends before, right? Amalya and Sanjana. Sanjana's parents are kind of pretty much like my own parents. Like, I'm super close to them, and they're really, really warm and loving and, very close. It's a very closely knit family, and I've been lucky enough to be a part of it. And so we were all just sitting at the dining table one night, and I was telling them my plans and stuff. And I didn't really put any pressure on the name because I said, you know what, it'll come to me. I know, I have that faith, it'll come to me. Something will, like, this chord is going to, strike in my brain, and I'm going to be like, oh, this is it. So uncle just said, ah ha ha, he laughed about it. He's like, yeah, how about Heavenly Bliss? And I was like, no, that sounds a little too tacky. Like, plus there's this salon down the road that's called Heavenly Bliss. So I was like, no. And then I thought about, like, how when you're making a milkshake, the term is blitz, and you blitz fruits into a milkshake or a smoothie or anything, actually. And since I wanted to start predominantly with baking, oven was already in it, and he said Heavenly Bliss. So I said, how about Ovenly Blitz? Like, just switch things up a little bit and make it a little more authentic. And the first thing I did was Google searches, see if the name was taken by a lot of places. Really, it wasn't. I didn't find anything. It was Ovenly Bliss and so and so. And I was like, you know what? This is the one for me. And that's how it came into being. It was because of my best friend's dad. Yeah. Who's also like my own dad, but yeah.
That's such a nice story. Tell me, how did you start Avinli Blitz?
As I mentioned before, it was a very, very low, sad phase of my life where I was kind of lost in a lot of ways, and I was in something that I was very unhappy being in, but I was made to feel like I would be a terrible person if I stood up for myself and let it go. And it was definitely the first time that I actually, was with somebody that way. So I kind of gave in to it super easily, and the entire relationship took a really, really big toll on me. So Avali Blitz just started, as I said, escape plan. It was the best thing that ever happened. And then once I started it, I forgot about everything else in the world. I literally just dove right in, and I started, doing taste tests and experiments, and then I started to get orders, and I just kept saying yes to every order I got because I wanted to dive into work and, completely bury myself in it, which is what I did for the next 3 months. And that gave me the strength to let go and cut ties with the toxic, partner. And yeah, I think from there, it's just been about me and my purpose. And I feel like even though maybe may not have been under the best circumstances, I still found what I feel like I was meant to do. And for that, I'm super grateful. Even for the bad, even for all the toxic, I'm super grateful because I wouldn't be this sure of what I want to do with my life if it wasn't for any of those experiences. So that's how Avandi Blitz started. And
When was this?
this was 2018. Yeah. 2018 December. Yeah, December. But I only full-fledged started in like Jan, Feb, March of 2019.
Which is right before the lockdown. Is it?
What?
Jan, Feb, March is right before the lockdown.
That's 2020, babe.
Okay, timeline. Kaila's bad at that.
No, it's cool.
Okay, continue.
Yeah, so as that was
2019.
You confused me there for a sec. I was like, wait, what? I don't blame you though, dude. I completely forget this year even happened.
Yeah.
I don't even know where it went. But so that's how it started, and it stuck with me. And even though it's my first venture, it's definitely not my last, but it is definitely one of my most personal ones because I think it helped me get out of a place that was very dark, very dim at the right time. Before I was in way too deep, I got out of it, and I'm super happy with where I am right now. I'm super happy right now.
I'm happy too because we get to taste all of this
I'm so glad you do.
beautiful, food that she cooks. I hope, I can taste more. I've only tasted her
Definitely.
cake yet.
I mean, there's a lot more. We should do tacos and we should do stuff like that. You know what? We should even just do one nice, like, papu rasam and some nice, like, fry.
You're making my
vegetable
mouth
fry.
water. I'm pretty sure my speech is gonna slur after a point.
It's okay. I mean, you're with me right now. I can probably work something out later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Oh my gosh. This is so much fun. I loved listening to this story of yours and the way, you kind of entangled, how it helped you with your mental, helped clear your mental chaos, and you
It was
put it
therapeutic.
you put it into a physical form of food.
Yes, and I think that the key was taking something that was so filled with negativity and hatred and judgment and sort of changing it and turning it into something that's so positive. Like, it was all that hate that I took, and it was all that hate that I had in me that I decided to channel into something productive, which turned out to be the best decision I've ever made in my life. I am so glad because I started culinary school after that, right? So I just finished my culinary course at Bangalore Culinary Academy. So up until then, I was not a certified chef, but now I am. So
Hey.
yay, yay me.
Do we call you a chef now?
Yes, I'm Chef Pushpanjali. My kitchen name is Chef P.
Chef P.
Yeah.
Hey, Chef P. Nice
Yeah.
to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Prerna.
So, when did you start your course?
I started my course in December last year.
So, was it like
It
right
was
after you ended dropped out or after a
No,
while?
I took a good 2 years just staying home, getting my life back on track, and I was in that toxic wave for a while. So I think after that I took a year to just regain everything that I had lost, find myself again. And when I was ready, which was last year October, I started looking at like places and culinary schools and stuff. Found this one; it was pretty close to home, and they had really good reviews. So I joined Bangalore Culinary Academy in December last year, and my course was supposed to end a lot earlier than it did, but because of the pandemic, it was postponed. So I finished pretty late, but it was a very 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 eye opening experience. Negative and positive. Like it was both. Like I learned how honestly frustrating the kitchen can be and how much pressure you constantly have to work under. But at the same time, I also learned that that's the kind of environment I want to work in. I feel like that works best for me under pressure because I tend to just block everything out and zone out on what my tasks are with the food and just stick to that. Or, you know, it's been a very very eye opening year.
Why don't you tell me more about the experience? I'm super curious.
Yeah, so
What
college.
happens in a culinary school?
So we had like theory classes twice a week and practicals twice a week. So it would be initially we didn't have that many practical classes. It was just theory because they had to catch us up on a lot. Like they had to catch us up on quite a few things, and there's a lot more to it than just cooking. You're learning a lot of like different types of vegetables and different produce, how to grow, how to buy, how to we learn everything from chopping to how it's grown. So it's a lot of theory, and I think it's essential to know a little bit of it before you get into actually cooking. And the kitchen has a hierarchy. You got to know about that hierarchy. You got to know what knife is used for what chopping board is used for what, because you can't mix and match anything because that's cross contamination, and it's taken really seriously in the industry, like in the F&B industry, especially in five stars. And that's what my course is essentially. It was training me for that, but that's not what I want to do. Yeah, I think my course it mainly focused on this. And then we had a couple of recipes that were given to us by the academy, and we had like a workstation set up. So it was like a proper fully functional commercial kitchen. So we were put under like that environment with chefs above us, like basically our trainer chefs, who would act like the head chefs and kind of, just be behind us with a stick. So they wanted us to get used to the pressure. But it was really nice because I made some really nice friends. I learned a lot about food that I didn't know. Plus, it helped me be a little more patient, a little more understanding, a little less impulsive. So that I think was lacking, and the course really did help me in all the
Patience
ways.
with what? Like aspect of.
Patience with, okay, so say for example, I fuck up like a task that was given to me. I completely screw it up, but I don't own up to it. Like, say I'm too scared, to say, yes, chef, I did it. Oh my god, the amount of stuff, dude. There's no censor in the kitchen. You hear all sorts of language. You got to be okay with it because it's frustration talking. Secondly, not talking back to people even if they're rude to you, your superiors and stuff. And that's something I struggle with because I feel like there's a decent way to say whatever you want to say, no matter what position you are, no matter who you are. No, even if you want to be stern, right? You can be stern. You don't have to be rude about it. And that's something I also struggle with from time to time. So it's only human of people to be a little too much sometimes. But basically, our college just wanted us to get used to that environment, because a lot of these chefs, when they were doing like their training and their internship, their seniors would have treated them really badly, and so they would have taken that out, all that frustration, as you said, conditioning,
Social conditioning.
social conditioning. So that frustration they take out on their juniors, and it's like this toxic cycle, which I don't want to give into.
And someone has to break it.
Someone's got to break it, and let's hope that chefs that are studying now and in the years to come do break it. I mean, you guys, like, honestly, there is a nice way to say things. Like, just be nice, or you don't want to be nice, cool, don't be a complete asshole. That's all I ask. Just be nice. Just think of the other person and their emotions and their feelings and the fact that they're human too. And just, you want to be stern, but be polite at the same time. I don't know if that makes sense. Does that?
It does.
Kind of, right?
It's kind of like an amalgamation of everything.
Of everything. Yeah, balance.
Balance.
Balance. It's the key to everything, honestly.
Well, that's the end of the first part of the conversation with Pushpanjali. Tune in next week to hear the rest of it. Bye bye.